welcome back to my nightmare. Same day, obviously. I did all the other ones in the same day. My voice is going to start to like go a little raspy. It's not handling talking so well, which is just weird because like I talk for a living. It doesn't get raspy after the 300 phone calls I take during a day. I think I got a piece of dissolved instant coffee. So far, the Cafe Bustelo instant coffee, that's the one I like the best, I think. It has the least amount of fake coffee taste. But Juan Valdez is close second. So where were we? Yes. I have been in a hotel room. The vibes were that you and I were just hanging out on vacation. And there's some and I was reading you a story. That's the vibes. That's the vibes we're going for. At times you may hear the loud thermostat-y thing that goes off sometimes, or housekeeping, because we're obviously in a hotel, which I didn't really think about how appropriate this was until it happened. But it is pretty appropriate setting for me reading the second book in my Quaint City series. There are some things that link these books together, but they are pretty standalone. So if you just want to read one, you can. But I do think it's fun to Jesse has been transitioning since the first book to see how he's evolved and how he's doing. I don't know. There are like little parts that are also linked, but they're standalone books in my opinion. Should we just jump right into it? I'm not reading the dedication again. We already did that once. Yeah. Anyway. If you want to know why I'm in a hotel, go back and watch the first one, I guess. So let's see. We're going to try and get through chapters 3 and 4 before my friend shows up and we have to go to the thing we're doing tonight. So here we go. Chapter 3. Getting dressed in the morning was turning out to be more mental health points than Denver actually had in their arsenal. There were the usual hurdles, of course, like, am I allowed to care what I look like? Do I risk doing something that other people will perceive as different? There were also things like, I'm going out with a very cute girl who I would like to look attractive for, but what if her idea of attractive is different from mine? It was all a bit of a mess, really, and they ended up settling on a pair of plain blue jeans that were just a little bit too big on them and a loose t-shirt for their favorite metal band. It wasn't quite the look they were going for, but honestly, if they were clawing their way through donated furniture of a thrift store, it was probably good enough. Denver knew that was probably part of the problem. What even was good enough? So, suffice to say, when they arrived at Devil's, they were not in the best of moods, and mostly because they'd talked themselves in too many circles before they ever even left the house. But it helped that Celia's smile was bright and eager. Her eyes were sparkling, and she was happy to see them. Denver couldn't help but grin back. Celia had chosen a plain-ribbed tank top in a really dark, blushy pink color, and a pair of paint-splattered jeans with sandals. Even though it was early in the morning, it was already hotter than Satan's asshole, so her skin glistened just a bit with a light sweat. Denver hoped she hadn't been waiting for them too long. Good morning, sunshine, Celia said happily as Denver came closer. They gave into the urge to open their arms, and she happily leapt into the hug. Is that what this time of day is called? I'm not familiar with it, Denver said as they released her. She wrinkled her nose. I should have known you were a night owl, she said. I would be too, but they've had me on the morning shift a lot lately. I think I'm getting used to it. Denver shrugged. It's okay if you're just a morning person, too. I wouldn't think any less of you. Celia smiled, but she didn't reply to that. She motioned to the shop. Shall we? Maybe once we have caffeine, you'll be more appreciative of the time of day. She pulled her mask out of her shorts pocket and slipped it over her face. It was a bright rainbow type of plaid. Denver beamed before covering their own face with the leftover surgical mask they'd swiped from a big box store. Doubtful, Denver teased. They, the plural they, went into the shop and Denver let out a groan. A Saturday morning at Devil's Stomping Grounds was crowded, even during the pandemic times, and it didn't help that Frankie was on the espresso machine with Kita nowhere to be found. The line was backed up to the door. This line is impossible. Would you rather go somewhere else? Celia asked, biting her lip. Denver shook their head. No, it's just the girl that usually works this shift isn't in, and that girl is new. It's going to be a while, but I don't mind the wait, they told her. Celia smiled. I don't mind waiting either. It's nice to wait for good things, Celia replied. And I can tell you, this is the best coffee I've managed to find. Denver nodded. Eve is the owner, and she's really good about where they source the beans from. Kita has worked here longer than anyone. She should really be the manager now, since she usually runs the place when Eve isn't even here. Frankie's okay. She tends bar over at the cabin. What's the cabin? Celia asked. Denver snickered. The weirdest gay club you'll ever be in. It's all the way out in the country, halfway up a mountain, and it's decorated like something out of frickin' Twin Peaks. They pretended to frown. You're not planning on decorating my place like a ski lodge, are you? Celia laughed. No, I'm not, although now that you mention it, black and white chevron. Chevron had its time in the mid-2000s, Denver replied, and Celia giggled again. Only this time she put her hand on Denver's arm and squeezed. It caused Denver to blush and then gulp. We're trying to update it, not send it back a few decades. I'm glad you have some idea of what we're doing, because I'm just here for the ride, Celia teased. They had inched closer and closer to the start of the line, where Max was waiting to take their order. No food truck today? Denver asked with surprise. Usually Max ran a food truck down at the Quaint City Farmers Market on the weekends, which explained just a tiny bit why they, oh gosh, another they, were running the register when Frankie was making the drinks. Drinks could be remade, but screwing up the drawer could take forever to fix for a new person. Max used to work at the part-time at the coffee shop before saving up enough for their truck, so they knew a little bit about how to run things. Nah. Eve called in a favor. Kita isn't feeling well, and she's testing negative, but Eve still wants her to quarantine, Max said. What about Eve? Oh, she's out of town, and since it's only one time in the entire year she gets a single weekend off, I'm frankly proud of her for reaching out and protecting that time for herself. It's hard being a business owner, Max said, as if anyone was surprised by this. Although, they might have been. They might not have realized the time commitment to running a food truck. I'm guessing by your appreciation of her boundaries that you've started seeing Honey, too, Denver said with their lips twitching under their mask. Ah, yeah, Tate recommended her, Max replied. They slumped guiltily and gave a sigh. I tried to get Cordy to see her with me, but she said no. She needs time, apparently, and I didn't reply to her because... How do you reply to that? If I text, I'm not giving her time. If I don't text, how does she know I'll still be here when she's ready? If I do text, I'm a doormat. If I don't, I'm a jerk, maybe. Hey, move it along. The man standing behind Denver made them jump with the agitation in his voice. Max was about to say something when Frankie called out, Patience is a virtue, sir. Oh, shit, Max muttered. Okay, is that everything before a war starts to break out? Denver and Celia ordered and left Max to placate the guy that was super pissed about Frankie's lack of urgency in preparing anyone's drinks, and Max's natural chattiness. Celia leaned in and asked, Who's Cordy? An ex? No, it's weird, Denver confided as they waited for Frankie's slow but skilled hands to craft their lattes. They were best friends in high school, and they worked really hard to save up and get a food truck, but then they had a falling out. To be honest, Max can be a bit short, especially under pressure, and Cordy had some personal stuff happen, I think. I'm not as close with Cordy as I am with Max. It's like they have good customer service face, but not good method for dealing with close friendships. A meme friend, Cordy said Celia said softly with a wise nod. Denver's brows knit together. What? A meme friend. Someone who's really good at sharing cut to the core, I definitely know you too well memes, but who is also very awkward and probably on some kind of spectrum, Celia said. Denver chuckled. They couldn't disagree. How many nights had Max sent them some really relevant, it's okay to be non-binary meme on social media, somehow knowing after midnight that Denver would be up and in the middle of a gender crisis? That is very accurate, Denver said, and they took their latte from Frankie. It was suspiciously pink, but Denver wasn't about to complain. Is that... But you didn't get the strawberry... Wait, didn't we just get normal iced coffees? Celia asked. Do you want to be the one to tell her? Denver asked with a nod at the hyper-chipper... Bleh. I don't know what's wrong with my voice right now. Hyper-chipper Frankie. Hey, Frankie. Her faded pink hair, which was taking on an orangish tone, was falling out of its high ponytail. It framed her manic blue eyes, which popped against the pink cotton of her mask. Nothing! This is just so good, and you're doing such a good job, Celia said quickly, and Denver had to cough to hide a laugh. Did I get the same one? I can't remember what I ordered. Yep, the strawberry shortcake special, Frankie said confidently with just a hint of, oh shit, did I fuck this up? Denver coughed again and Celia elbowed them. Was that wrong? No, I just wanted to make sure, Celia said smoothly as she took her drink from Frankie. Thank you. Hope it slows down for you. Oh no, never. I love it when it's busy, Frankie said cheerfully. It makes the time go by faster. Definitely, Celia agreed. You're so right. They both waved to Frankie and then went for the door, barely able to contain their giggles. Once they were outside, Denver peeled off their mask with a gasping wheeze. Oh my God, you're such a liar. I'll have to be careful with you. I couldn't tell her, Celia objected, swatting at their arm. I'm not going to hurt her feelings if she's new, especially with that guy who was behind us. He was probably going to yell at her enough as it is. Denver took a sip of their drink and regretted it immediately. Why does it taste like perfume? That's not strawberry. I think she put rose syrup in it, Celia said, sampling her drink as well. The humid air was already starting to beat down on them, letting them know that while summer was on its way out, it was certainly going to put up a fight. I can't do anything without coffee today. It's too early. Drive-through? Denver asked, waggling their eyebrows at her. She grinned, and they both tossed their cups into the nearby trash can as they walked toward Celia's beat-up truck. Absolutely, she said with a confident nod. Denver climbed into the passenger seat, closing the door with a rusty slam. As they pulled away, the angry man was coming out of Devil's with a pink drink in his hand. The problem with drive-through coffee, Denver said later as they sipped at something from a chain restaurant, is that it always has this weird mustardy taste after. Things I'm learning about you, my new favorite friend. A list. First thing, you are a coffee snob, Celia teased. She parked her truck, something old and once painted blue before the rust had started to claim it, in the parking lot of one of the Blue Goat Township's shady shopping centers. It was actually not too far from the one where they'd met. The pavement was cracked and had a few potholes that could be advertised as lakes in the BGT tourism brochure, if it had such a thing. And there were the usual suspects of stores, a dollar store, an off-brand grocery store, an Indian food place that Denver knew had some of the absolute best food, and an antique shop where a doctor's office used to be. In the biggest retail space was the thrift store, which already had a line in front of it of early morning resellers looking for their next thrift score. Water pause. I'm not so much a snob as I am just kind to my taste buds, Denver replied. They whistled. That line is impossible. That's the second time you've said that this morning. Seems to be a theme. Celia seemed to hesitate by the front of her car. She twisted her hands in the hem of her t-shirt. We don't have to, if you don't think you're up for it. Sorry about that. Was Denver up for it? They took a deep breath and looked up at the sky as they considered their options. Cute date with a cute girl, even though it would be a tiny bit too much. They were pretty sure that Celia was looking forward to this, and they didn't want to disappoint her. Alternatively, they didn't want to end up having a panic attack in the store because some inner demon convinced them that the man in aisle 6 knew they were queer just by how tight their skinny jeans were, and that he was waiting to beat them up in the parking lot, or that the woman with allergies at the register was actually contagious and Denver would catch the illness they were all trying to avoid. They looked over at Celia's cute little face. Fuck it. They pulled their mask out of their pocket and slipped the loops over their ears and held out their hand. I'm ready if you are. They could be brave for Celia. She grinned at them and put her own mask on. Her hands slid into Denver's as if they had been meant to be there all along. Their fingers slotted perfectly together. I'm ready. The inside of the store was overwhelming to say the least. Giant thrift stores like this had been popping up all over the state and putting the dingy mom-and-pop style ones out of business. It was a little bittersweet for Denver. They hadn't done shopping in a while, but they had some really nice memories of being a teen on a budget looking for hardcore clothes in the dark corners filled with vintage leather and Levi's before the hipsters realized it was a cool thing to do. On the other hand, having more options was nice. This place even had some flat carts that stores like DIY Warehouse use, so furniture could be stacked safely on top and shoppers could keep looking. I think I did all this wrong, Celia said thoughtfully as they perused the furniture offerings. I didn't measure your apartment or even look at the space. I'm a terrible decorator. I was just so excited to come out and spend time with you that I forgot all the usual steps to redecorating a place. Measuring probably would have been helpful, Denver admitted. They tossed their hair out of their eyes as they considered what their apartment needed. So, the basics I could use might be a bed frame if we could find one, a coffee table, possibly some art because my walls are super boring right now. They were boring before Erin took her stuff, but without anything, they're just, I guess it's actually an improvement. Erin's style was very doctor's office waiting room, generic. Once COVID hit, it even took that medicinal smell with the two of us cleaning so much and trying to keep everything sanitized during the lockdown. Celia was trying not to giggle, but the shake of her shoulders gave it away. Okay, but what's your style? What do you like? Denver blushed. Could they say death and skulls and stuff that looks like it's from the cemetery but make it chic? Come on, Celia said, elbowing them gently. You can trust me. I won't laugh. You just did, Denver told her. She giggled. Yeah, but your ex's style sounds heinous. That has to be an excused laugh. It's just, I don't know what I'm doing. And Erin, she's not wrong. Whatever I'm doing, I'm 300% too old for it, Denver complained. Sorry. They stopped by a desk and looked longingly at it. It was old and definitely not an antique, a reproduction probably. But if it had been painted black, it would have looked like it was out of a Vincent Price movie. Denver stroked their fingers along the wood. I like rock and roll, skulls, punk, but somehow polished. Maybe that makes me a goth. Dark maximalist? Is that a style? It can be if you want. You can do anything, Denver, Celia said. Denver gazed down at the scars and the finish of the desk, avoiding her gaze. Can I? Of course. Don't let someone who isn't even in your life anymore suck all of the joy out of it, Celia said softly. Her hand gripped their arm. So, what about skirts and dresses? The conversation turning abruptly from furniture to clothes had Denver sucking in a surprised breath. What? Is the baggy metal tee and jeans really your thing? Or is that because you don't know what else to do? Celia asked. She held up her hands, an apology bright in her eyes. I'm not saying you need a makeover, not at all. But I did have a friend in my old town who transitioned when she was older, and she needed some help with makeup because she just never knew what to do. If you're mask and non-binary, that's completely valid. It's fine, Denver said quickly, desperate to stop the conversation before Celia's apology got any louder than it already was. They cleared their throat. You're not wrong. Skirts are cool. I'm into them. But I feel like they're so flowy and feminine, and that's not the vibe. There's nothing wrong with that, but that doesn't feel very me. Fair, Celia said. She squinted, clearly wanting to ask something, but hesitating to do so. Do you want some help with that? Denver considered for a moment, and then they nodded. Yeah, let's keep looking for stuff for the house, but yeah, I'd love help with that. Once their little flat cart had been stacked with too many things for Denver to really process, they found themselves attacked by an armful of clothes and shoved into the recently reopened, thank you COVID, dressing rooms. I went for less Stevie Nicks and more avant-garde, Celia called from the other side of the door as Denver got dressed. They turned to look at the outfit in the mirror. They were stunned, blown away by how amazing they felt. They opened the door to show Celia. The shock must have still been present on Denver's face because her smiling eyes took a frozen, self-doubting tilt. Denver wanted to reassure her to do something because Celia had managed to nail their style in just a few minutes when no one else who knew them had been able to help at all. Don't get Denver started on the one ill-conceived shopping trip with Tate. It was a disaster, to say the least. The outfit screamed vamp. Denver had on a straight midi-length skirt with their black docks poking out of the bottom. Celia had picked an oversized gray tee with the armholes cut to make it into a muscle tank. They had on a thick silver chain and a loose, oversized 80s black blazer. Their layered wolf cut was long and wavy, with the shaved bits by their ears giving a hint of Boy George, but like make it modern. They looked tough and femme and edgy. They felt like the kind of person who lived in a cool, dark apartment filled with antiques and creepy old dolls and plants. They felt like David Bowie and Noel Fielding and every corporate goth they'd ever seen rolled into one. They felt classy. Celia, they breathed. It's perfect. Even with the mask, the relief shone on Celia's face as her eyes relaxed into a genuine smile. She stood on her tiptoes and plopped a black, wide-brimmed hat onto their head. No, now it's perfect, she said softly. Chapter 4. As they drove into Quaint City, their stomachs started to rumble. After all, they hadn't had anything to eat at Devil's before they left, and thrifting had taken most of the morning and some of the afternoon. Luckily, Denver knew of a great diner that served breakfast all day, and Celia seemed intrigued. It was one of those places that had been in Quaint City since the 1950s, with silver siding and all of the booths up against the wall of the window. There was a counter with chrome stools that swirled and a jukebox that played old music. Denver was pretty sure it was still owned by the original family too, but they couldn't be sure. A sign at the front said to seat themselves, and they did. At their table, they were able to remove their masks. Denver's heart sped up at the sight of Celia's smile, unguarded and unmasked. Now, you want to talk about being a coffee snob, Denver said as the server placed down their drinks and walked away. You cannot tell Kita, mind you, but there's nothing in the world as wonderful as diner coffee. Ooh, she's going to be mad. There may come a day when I use this information against you, you understand, Celia teased. Denver laughed. It's true. I don't know why, but diner coffee is better than any coffee I ever had. Denver picked up their cup, having sweetened it just a little bit, and took a grateful sip. Celia was studying them with a thoughtful gaze. You were a theater kid, she said. Denver almost choked. What? The only people who say diner coffee is the best coffee were theater kids. You're nostalgic for those 3 a.m. Denny's gatherings, Celia said with a knowing nod. She picked up her coffee, too, and took a sip. I'd know. I was a techie. Denver giggled. Of course you were. I was. I did set designs and lighting and stage managed, Celia said. She scowled at Denver. You were Hamlet, weren't you? No. Senior year, Hamlet, and all the girls told you they had sexy dreams about you, Celia said with a smirk. Denver shook their head. I was the nanny. What? Celia's brows knit together as she tried to remember a nanny character in Hamlet. It was Denver's turn to smirk. We did Romeo and Juliet our senior year, Denver told her. Shock dawned on her face, and then delight, and she started cackling. No! Absolutely. Let me tell you, I don't think anyone was lusting after me in that outfit, Denver said with a chuckle. Celia seemed delighted, laughing with glee. Her cheeks were turning a sweet pink. You were a MILF, she giggled. Denver was so engrossed in her face and her laughter, drinking in this new friend full of things to discover, that they missed the chime of bells over the diner door. You were an absolute MILF, I bet. Probably not, Denver said. They caught movement as a person stepped through the door, looking over involuntarily, only to groan. Good Lord. Tate had just walked in. Instead of their usual jeans and a t-shirt, they were dressed in nice black slacks and a pressed blue button-down. They might have been wearing makeup. At the very least, their eyes were accented in a way that seemed to involve eyeliner and mascara, and the rest was covered up by a mask. Denver could tell by the way their eyes crinkled they were smirking when they finally looked back. Having a craft club meeting? Denver asked as they approached the table, giving a little skip. Their hands were in their pockets and they had a leather folder under their arm. Denver recognized it because Denver had one too for holding their resume when they were on job interviews. Shut up. What are you doing here? Denver asked. They raised their eyebrows expectantly. Getting waffles, Tate snickered. Denver frowned. Dressed like that? What? It's not a, or why not? It's a good morning for waffles, Tate said, and they raised their eyebrows back at Denver. Where Denver's expression had meant to communicate, please don't fuck this up for me, and just a hint of, leave. Tate's was definitely more of a, well now, isn't this cozy? Actually, I'm interviewing here. They've got a waiter position open. Denver's brows folded into a confused furrow. Weren't you working in that medical office, the one Cordy works at? Cordy had been the one-time food truck partner to Max, and she was really sweet, but she also had a day job as a receptionist at a primary care office. The job sounded like hell on earth. Max tried it, but left only after a few days, before quitting to go work at Devil's. Denver watched Tate, seeing how Tate's eyes flitted guiltily away before coming back, their voice sounding sheepish when they answered. Yeah, I quit, they said, and they looked like the words tasted like bile. You weren't there long. What about needing to save? Denver pointed out. Celia's hand tapped on Denver's, causing them to look over at her. Her expression was sympathetic. I'm sure they tried, Celia said softly. She looked back up at Tate. It's got to be hard being in a medical office during this whole thing. Yeah, it wasn't easy, Tate said. They shrugged. Anyway, it's not like I'm ever actually going to get out of this place. Might as well accept my fate and try for a job that doesn't make me want to... Yeah, best not to finish that sentence. I'm off. They waved goodbye and went back to the counter to let the host know they were there for an interview. After a moment, they were escorted back into the back of the building and out of sight. Are they okay? Celia asked gently. Denver shrugged. As okay as I've ever seen them. I think they have depression, but they're seeing a therapist. Denver huffed and then shrugged again. I know they have a hard time with their family, who are all locals. Quaint City seems like a nice little gay-friendly tourist trap, but we're still kind of out in the sticks, and there's a lot of people who don't really take kindly to, quote, alternative lifestyles. They made quotes around the words with their fingers. Yeah, that must be hard for everyone, Celia said. The waiter was returning with their food. Denver picked up their toast and started to slather it with butter from those little plastic containers with the foil lids. Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, I'm not even really out at work, Denver admitted softly. But work isn't the same. It's not family. Family feels like it can stick to you, you know? Oh, yeah, Celia said. She had picked up the salt and was dumping an obscene amount of it on her eggs, followed by entirely too much pepper for Denver's comfort. I've been pretty lucky with my family. I can tell being queer makes them uncomfortable, and they don't want me to be too public about it. But they don't get to make that choice for me now that I don't live close to home. I want to be my most authentic self, and they don't get to dictate what that is for me. True, Denver said. They looked towards the door where Tate had disappeared. I guess that's why I'm on them a bit about saving. I think they miss living in a city too much, like a big city that's further away from your family. I think this is the year they're comfortable. I think this year is the year they're comfortable with moving away. Celia chewed thoughtfully, although Denver could not understand how she managed to put eggs with that much salt in her mouth, and they were pretty sure they could hear her teeth crunching through it. But her eyes were soft, drawing them in with her sincerity. You'll miss them, but you'll be happy for them. True, Denver repeated. They sighed. They might be my best friend. But I'll still have Keita and Jessie. I don't think they'll ever leave Quaint City. What about you? Celia asked. Denver smiled at her. I'm open to any and all possibilities, they said diplomatically. Celia nodded and gave a happy wiggle. Okay, back to the subject at hand. Plants? Denver snickered. Absolutely not. I would kill them, and that doesn't seem fair. You might not kill them. Plants are very reactive. If you were unhappy in a previous living situation, you were probably focused on self-care instead of plant care, Celia said. She shoved another bite of eggs in her mouth before she could giggle. Denver smirked. Do you really believe that? I do not, Celia said, giving a shrug. But nothing else is working, so it can't hurt, right? She had a valid point there. I love plants, Denver said honestly, pushing their soggy chip beef around their beef with toast around on their plate. It had seemed appealing when they ordered it, but between the guilt over job-shaming Tate and the flock of butterflies that had settled in their heart region, they were less hungry now. But I'm more of a botanical garden type of person with the living type of person than a living things in my home that I'm not responsible for kind of person. that I'm responsible for kind of person. No kids then, Celia said, and Denver couldn't tell if it was a question or not. Nah, I mean, I never really wanted them, but I think if Aaron had asked, I might have considered it. It's all really scary for me right now, though. I think the world is messed up and I'm just figuring out gender and stuff, Denver said quickly. How could I have a kid? Celia nodded. Fair, and good to know. How about you? Denver asked. Oh, I love plants, Celia said with a wicked grin. There was a bit of butter and strawberry jelly at the corner of her mouth, and Denver knew that even if they were allergic to strawberries, they'd have risked death in an EpiPen to taste it from that exact spot. My apartment was full of them before I moved. I love taking care of things, if I'm being honest, but that probably won't include children without several miracles in the future. They nodded, and the way Celia's eyes were shiny, they knew it was a touchy subject for her. They didn't know if they should press or back off, so they managed a, that's apparent. Celia frowned. What? The way that you care about things, Denver said quickly. You took care of me today after having barely even met me. And the way you handled Tate was amazing. You give a lot. Celia's lips were twitching their way up again. That's true. I never really looked at it that way. Denver tilted their head to the side. What way did you mean it? I just saw a really cute person and I wanted to spend time with them, making them feel good. If that involves shopping for home decor, a passion of mine, well, gosh, I'll just have to suffer, Celia said softly. But there was a vivid warmth in her eyes. Her tongue darted out to lick the corner of her mouth, seeking that spot of strawberry. Denver swallowed. Thanks, they managed. You're pretty cute. Celia winked. I know. Lunch was full of stupid little things that made Denver's heart sing. Things like footsies under the chrome-edged table and rubbing their legs together for quick moments that seemed electric. They'd forgotten love could be like this. Denver paused in the shameless flirting to glance up at Tate when they were heading out the door for their interview. Tate nodded back, but didn't come to say hi. Denver was going to have to text them later to see how everything had gone, and maybe to say sorry for being such a hard ass. Following lunch, Denver and Celia piled back into her truck and drove to Denver's apartment. They remembered moving in with Erin and how her organized, efficient way made Denver and their friends do a lot of heavy lifting while she stayed in the apartment and dictated where things went and how things were displayed. That was a valid way of doing things, and Denver didn't think negatively of the experience, except that Erin had come off as kind of too good to work instead of genuinely concerned with organizing their living space. Alternatively, Celia was insistent on unloading everything together and making trips up and down the stairs, letting Denver tell her where to put things. Not that Celia would dictate this apartment because she didn't live here, but at the same time, she made a comforting show of letting Denver choose. That's all Denver really wanted, some actual say in how things worked. Maybe a little reassurance that their taste wasn't completely awful. We really put a lot in the truck, didn't we? Celia asked, wiping sweat from her forehead and smearing her hands down her shirts. Denver nodded. Well, we were having fun, they said. Celia nodded. She stepped towards them right into their space and reached up to do the same for them. She brushed their damp bangs out of their face, making sure none of their hair was stuck to their skin. She smiled. Are we still having fun? Denver stared down at her, lips parted. Oh, yeah. Good, because we have to decorate this place. It's kind of like if a saltine cracker were an apartment and unsalted, Celia said, glancing around. Denver snorted, but their heart was racing. There had been a moment there. A moment where someone cute, someone who knew they were non-binary, had stepped into their space as though it was desirable to be close to them. It made them want to scrap all the projects and show Celia their mattress. Okay, maybe they did need to fix a few things before showing her the bedroom. As it happened, the bedroom was the place she wanted to start. Celia had called in a favor while they were in Blue Goat Township, which meant a pit stop at the DIY warehouse. Together, they picked up a few discarded wooden pallets to create an industrial platform for Denver's mattress. It was a little mid-aughts, but they were on a budget, and the wood was free, so Denver wasn't about to complain. Not to mention, it felt homey. Their mattress wasn't on the floor anymore, but it was still an unconventional bed situation. And it was also plenty sturdy for extracurricular activities. Not to mention the books, which Denver hadn't remembered having, that Celia slotted into the gaps. It looked charming, cozy, something the room had not been when Aaron lived there. Celia hadn't been kidding about adding plants to the apartment either. While Denver sanded down the pallets, she made this amazing draped garland of vines that went over one window with fake leaves that she got from the Dollar Tree. From it, she wrapped little bottles with rough brown string and put tiny roses in them, hanging each bud lovingly amongst the greenery. It wasn't redoing what Denver was already working with, it was embellishing, and Denver adored it. With clean bed sheets added to the mattress and the mattress stacked on top of the pallets, they both flopped down and then rolled so they were facing each other. Celia's hair was a disaster, frizzing up in a tiny bit from the heat and all the hard work, and Denver found it adorable. Together, they'd picked some deep jewel-toned throw pillows, and one of them must have been left over from Halloween because there was a detailed skull in the front, and her cheek was smashed against it. The leaves and the flowers, that's something I learned from the initial lockdown, Celia told them softly. At the time, my bedroom didn't really have any windows, so I went online and ordered all these fake plants. I mean, it was March when everything kicked off anyway, so there was no real greenery outside, but I was feeling so claustrophobic. I made a little fake garden so it wasn't so bad until we were able to go outside. That's really smart, Denver said, and they watched the beautiful blush that spread over Celia's nose and cheeks. Why, thank you, she said. She batted her eyelashes playfully. I pride myself on my almost creativity. Almost? I'd say you're pretty darn creative, Denver told her. She grimaced. Oh. Oh, I knocked the mic. I'm sorry. Some people haven't been so complimentary. My ex, she replied. I remember this one time I'd done a jacket up, just a denim jacket, pretty basic, and I was painting with a stencil, so it wasn't like real painting. My friend complimented on it, and my ex just rolled his eyes and said, creative? More like half creative. I never forgot that. I mean, it's not like I'm making real art. Who says you aren't? I mean, other than that guy, Denver said, quickly tacking on the last part. Real art is just the act of making. I bet your ex wasn't so creative either. Oh, don't get me started. He wasn't crafty or anything, but some of the ideas he could come up with. You should have heard him and his bisexuality isn't real argument. I don't know why I dated him, Celia said honestly. She scooted closer. It doesn't bother you if I mention my ex? It clicked suddenly for Denver that her ex had probably banned her from talking about other people within their relationship. And Denver's already soft heart bent further in her direction. They smiled in what they hoped was a reassuring manner. Of course not. I want to know all about you. Besides, it sounds like your ex was a massive douchebag. Celia wiggled closer, and Denver was shaken by how close she was now, how they could feel the heat radiating off her body. Thank you. She leaned in and pecked a soft, lingering kiss to Denver's cheek. And then she rolled away. Come on, we have work to do. Denver groaned, and suddenly they really did not feel like doing the work today. I think that's it, right? We were only doing chapter 3 and 4. Hold on, I gotta check. Yes, there's chapter 3. There's chapter 4. Okay. Oh my gosh, we did that in 38 minutes. I love Denver so much. Denver's the cutest to me. I just love them to pieces. I love Celia to pieces. And I will say that maybe I should do like a whole video on like inspiration for these, but I will admit that I think it comes up in another, I think I forgot I wrote it in that one and it comes up in another one. That half creative comment was something a boss actually said to me. I was learning in a hair salon and I said I had some like cut off cowboy boots that I like to wear because they're very comfortable. And one of our clients said to me that I was so creative for cutting off these cowboy boots. My boss at the time, the salon owner, was like, they're not creative. Well, maybe like half creative, but they're not creative. And I'm just sitting there like, I am literally one of your employees. You were supposed to be supporting me. Like, what is your problem, asshole? I don't work for that guy anymore. But anyway, I hope you liked this installment of Upcycle Your Heart. Stay tuned for next week. And as always, go outside, get a walk, get a snack, take a nap, take care of yourself, take your meds, drink some water. I'll see you next time.